Angeles and Tampa. This is Green Tagged Theme Park in 30. I'm Philip, and I'm joined by my co-host, Scott Swenson of Scott Swenson Creative Development. Of course, on Green Tagged, we look over the top theme park news from each week and discuss it. Well, some of the top theme park news. We pick, curate. And of course,
what we think is the top theme park news.
What we think is the top, yes.
Sometimes other people disagree with us. We think, what we think is important.
Frequently other people disagree. But this week, I think we can all agree that the Isle of Berk is the top news from this week. Universal, of course, released details about the Isle of Berk. I'm sure our listeners are already aware of it, but let's run through it anyway, or let's run through some of this and we'll give our opinions on it. And the release here says that Universal Orlando Resort shared more details about the How to Train Your Dragon Isle of Berk land opening as part of its new Epic Universe theme park in 2025. The land inspired by How to Train Your Dragon series will be home to 3 rides: Hiccup's Wing Gliders, Dragon Racers Rally, and Fyre Drill, as well as an interactive play area called Viking Training Camp and the Untrainable Dragon live show, plus, of course, dining options that are all themed. There's an excellent video that Universal released, both a fly-through rendering video, which is about 2 minutes, and then a longer kind of sit down and with some of the creatives that's about 6 minutes. That one is excellent. Not only is it excellent like editing, just from my personal like opinion of videography, but it also gives you it's very well produced, and it gives you a little bit more of a sense of what they're trying to achieve, I think, with their North Star of the balancing design elements and interactivity and whatnot. So the land does take place between the second and third movies, so it's really the peak harmony of dragons and people working together. Each ride is themed after one of the main characters, so they're kind of taking turns, as in like hosting some of the rides. You'll see the different people there. And of course, there definitely will include a meet and greet with Toothless, and it sounds like they're trying to recreate some of those moments from the original greeting with the hand and whatnot that really tie into the movie. I think we can work through the press release here and hear what they have to say about things. But of course, it should be a surprise to no one that the part I'm most excited about is the stage show. That should surprise no one. The press release says, inspired by Universal Beijing Resort's wildly successful Untrainable show, this dragon-filled live spectacular takes guests on an unforgettable journey with beloved characters Hiccup, Toothless, Gobber, and Astrid as they work together to solve the mystery of the untrainable dragon. This heartwarming story comes to life with captivating musical numbers, breathtaking sets, and life-size dragons soaring overhead. And it is, if you've seen the Universal Beijing show, it is an incredible show. It is Broadway level. Your puppetry, costumes, singing. I literally was like, this is the reason I want to go to Universal Beijing. Like this show. And I'm very, we had heard rumors, of course, and whatnot, but I'm hoping they bring the full show to Epic, and not a downsized version of it, but the full show with the full sets and the full puppets, because it's incredible. That's the part I'm most excited about. I think a lot of people are also excited about the roller coaster, which is the Wing Gliders, and it's described as a family thrill coaster where Hiccup invites brave new Vikings to take a ride on his latest glider contraption, a winged flying machine that launches aspiring dragon riders into the sky for a dragon's eye view of Berk. Guests will fly alongside Hiccup and Toothless and reach speeds of up to 45 miles per hour as they soar around the perimeter of Berk and even through the lagoon, while experiencing firsthand what it's like to fly a dragon. Yeah,
I have to say that, when this first was announced, I was really excited because when I was at MotionGate, by far the best experiences that I had were all in the DreamWorks indoor DreamWorks section, and their smaller take on Isle of Berk was, again, by far my favorite element. And the thing I really like about it is it's multi-generational without having to dumb it down. It's about working together. It's about something that I think everybody can identify with, or many people can identify with, and that is the bond between a kid and his pet, and how that they are far more part of the family sometimes than actual blood siblings. So I think that is really cool. I think that I love the idea of of flying around Berk. I think that is, I mean, the ride that's at Motion Gate is sort of a combination dark ride and coaster, which is super cool and so very much fun. And it was great storytelling, but there's always that kindness. And I think that, like if you've ever listened to my other show and you hear Lucy the demon dog barking in the background, you know how much I absolutely adore her. And just to see somebody who can have a dragon that flips over on their back so you can rub their belly, I immediately identify with that. And I am not at all the target demographic for that film, but I can take people who are, my age and people who are half my age and people who are a quarter my age, and will all still enjoy that same basic multi-generational entertainment that you don't have to dumb down or make sillier or ramp up and make inexplicably sexier. You can just make it because it's identifiable. So I think that's really cool. The other thing I like about utilizing this property, the How to Train Your Dragon property, is it is popular, but it has not been forced down our throats. We haven't seen, or at least I haven't been subject to all of the breakfast cereals and it's not, I'm not inundated by it. It's still unique. It's still cool. It's still fun. And I think the message and the moral is really neat too. So it sounds as though they're doing all the right things. I just to echo what you were saying, Philip, I love the fact that they are doing the show. There was some discussion as to whether that was going to happen or not. Not informed by anything other than, just speculation, but I'm glad to see that they're doing it. I think it will hopefully put a little shot of adrenaline back into the live entertainment side here in Florida, and it sounds like it's going to be something that people are going to want to see and need to see. So yeah, I'm very excited. This is, of all the properties that are at Epic, this is by far the one that interests me the most.
Yeah, it was interesting. That was said a few times in the 6-minute, the thing with some of the creators about how they kind of were most excited about these particular elements in this land. It was interesting to me, the announcement, why they chose to announce this first and then set the bar so high. I mean, that 6-minute video, that's the other thing too, we had previously talked about like how much is going to open, right? When it's said to open, and where's the level going to be at. This bar is set very high, I think, with this video. And this was the first announcement. And I think Scott and I were talking previously. I think the thing we came to is that it definitely is the multi-generational play here in this. And I think that's why it was announced first. And I think that they're you could definitely see they're doubling down on making sure this land is going to open. And now they've announced all these things. This land is going to open. This stuff is going to be on time. All this stuff is going to be done on time. And it is a multi-generational move, right? They're kind of making this almost like the cornerstone so far, one of the pillar of the park with the show. And it has all those multi-generational elements because, like you said, there's the heartfelt moments, but there's also the excitement of the dragons. There's a roller coaster balanced with the stage show, balanced with the kids play area, balanced with the eating. I mean, it's really a microcosm, of the classic theme park model of having something for everyone.
And it's also got the, we jokingly say dinosaurs never go away. Well, dragons are the next best thing. And, and you don't have to be sciencey when you do dragons because, they're fictional, perhaps based on dinosaur skeletons, who knows? But it hits, I just think it hits on every cylinder. And I think you're right. I think this is the way to go. Hey, Epic isn't just I've heard people in the States, and I don't necessarily agree with it, but they've referred to Epic as the also-rans of the Universal IPs. Mm-hmm. It's the ones that, because Potter is not the crux of the Potterverse. It's part of the Potterverse, but it's not the most recognizable part. People in the U.S. over a certain age are still having trouble accepting games as IP. So there's that stumbling block. So I think this is just a way to kind of say, yeah, but here's what you want in a theme park.
Yep.
This land could be a freestanding park in and of itself.
Yes.
This land has everything you need to be a successful park.
Yep.
And if things are running behind schedule, I think there are those who would say, well, if this opens, then that's just enough for me to go.
Correct.
So I think it's kind of in response as to why they're rolling it out and why they're rolling it out so robustly. It's kind of in response to I don't even want to call it lukewarm, because that's not fair. There's been a great deal of excitement about this park, and I can't open up social media without seeing some drone footage of something being tested for the first time or whatever. But I think this is a way to certainly address some of the less than over the top enthusiasm that the park has been generating, at least that I've been seeing. I don't know. Maybe I'm looking in the wrong place, but I think that this was let's call it the low hanging fruit. This is going to nail it. And now they can add other things. So I don't know whether they're necessarily setting the bar really high or whether they're using it to gather attention again. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it could be maybe both of those things, or it could just be, kind of be a combination of all of those things together, and really trying to cement for the largest demographic, which it seems like they are targeting families. And I mean, that's just kind of we've talked about the Texas park, and they're looking at these two things of like horror and then family elements. And it looks like, they're trying to put their stake in the ground, or whatever we talked about with the horror previously in Vegas, where they're trying to like stake their territory of this in this concept in Vegas. It seems like they're trying to do that here with this announcement in this order, and trying to show families and show people, like just what you said. Oh, we definitely have to go now. Like, this makes it worth it. I think they're hoping that the families will say, like, this makes it worth it to plan our vacation next year or the year after.
And they've seen this work before. I mean, when Wizarding World first started, people were like, Universal what? Let's just go to Hogsmeade, and then the next year it was Universal what? Let's just go to Diagon Alley, That's why they actually, in some of the early, and this shifted slightly, but in some of the early promotions, they actually talked about Wizarding World as a separate park within the other two parks, which in essence it is. And I think they had at one time talked about the possibility of separating it out and making it a third gate. But this is that, oh, well, now I want to go.
Yep.
It's that simple. Now, is it as strong as Potter? I don't know. And I think the fact that they didn't lead with Potter means that they are now recognizing, okay, this is cool. This will be for the Potter fans, but it's not quite as, it doesn't quite have the mass appeal that How to Train Your Dragon has. Which I think is a very smart move.
I agree with that 100%. And I think that even explains why they didn't lead with the horror area either, the Universal Monsters, the same thing. It's like, this is for the Halloween Horror Nights fans, basically, which is not as broad appeal as How to Train Your Dragon. Same thing with Harry Potter. I think you're right in that, like, if they had led with Universal Monsters, it would have been like, it's Halloween Horror Nights people. And if they had, it would have boxed them in. If they led with the Harry Potter, it would have been, another Harry Potter area, like an eye roll type of thing. Well, another Harry Potter area. Now there's one everywhere, and then same with the Super Mario, it's another gamer thing. There's a lot of boxed in happening in the other areas, where this one is the one they can, and presumably it's also the one that is most along building wise.
Well, and from a, even from a Universal standpoint, it's something that they have not really leaned into heavily before. So it's not, as you say, it's not Halloween Horror Nights or the Monster Cafe that used to be at Universal Studios in Florida, but done a different way, or it's not yet another Harry Potter land. It's something new and fresh that they can really sort of say, and this is new and fresh for us. Not taking into consideration that there are other parks in other parts of the world that have already done this and are still planning to do this, but not to they can claim world domination of this IP in this park at this point.
Yep.
Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah, that's an excellent. It's just like their Harry Potter move back in the day, right? Where it was the first Harry Potter thing to open, and that was able to draw such a huge because it was the first, and it was the world. And then now it's like, well, now, another Harry Potter area is how we feel.
Right. Right. When Wizarding World first opened, it did things financially for Universal Florida that they didn't even predict.
Yep.
To the point where there were some people in key positions that they actually had to give them bonuses, and in some cases the bonuses actually exceeded their annual salary. Because they needed to spend that money. Otherwise, they would have been just eaten alive with capital gain or whatever the tax situation is. So they had to reinvest that money in their people, and they had to do it quickly. And they had to do it in a way that they'd never planned on, because it redefined the Universal model.
And there's nothing that corporations hate more than reinvesting in their people.
Well, it's usually not the first choice. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, they're usually like dividends.
But it was with Universal, and I know a lot of people who were very grateful for that. So,
well, that's we'll link to all the articles in the show notes. But I think we talked about the Wing Gliders and the Untrainable Dragon show are definitely the headliners of that area, the coaster and the show. There's smaller rides, which we mentioned, Fyre Drill, which is a shooter essentially. And then there's the Dragon Racers Rally, which is, you're going to be able to fly with dragons, but it seems like just a basic lift and spin type of thing. Well, maybe not. I don't know. We'll see what. And then there's the training camp, which is the kids area. And then there's the meet and greet experience plus the food. So we'll put links to the Attractions Magazine article, which shows you construction aerial photos alongside the rendering, so you can kind of see how it's looking. And we'll also link to the official press release from Universal where you can watch the videos.
And I just have to say, I love, from a sense of, we've talked ad nauseum on this show and with other people in the industry about what immersive and inclusive actually means. I love the fact that by doing the Viking Training Camp, they have actually cast the children in roles. They are playing young Viking children. So it's not just, let's go play like this. It's no, this is a training camp, so you can actually become a character in the IP. And I think that's really neat.
Yep. Yeah, no, the cohesion of the theme in every area is very strong. Yep. Literally everything makes sense. And they explain it in the 6-minute video. Like I know some people are like, it's marketing speak. I'm like, no. I mean, how many times have we ran through announcements from other places where it's very strong. The kids area being all about learning about the different dragon types, the food, the different characters having their own area. Like it even avoids that weird, back in the day where it was you'd keep running into the main protagonist, at a different timeline, in a different space. It avoids all of these old traps. It sits in the same time space. In that way, it's immersive. The guests have roles they can fulfill that don't break the story.
Right.
And
don't take you out of the timeline.
Exactly. It just from this 6 minutes, we learned that it will utilize all of the things that Universal has learned through the past decade with their other storytelling and other IPs. And I would say it definitely, it should be clear to anyone that this is going to be on level with Disney, if not exceeding in some areas, because there definitely are some, we talked about the Hatbox Ghost, that just came out at Disney World, right? We're like, how come there's a ghost before the ghosts are summoned? There's been some degradation, I think, in the storytelling of Disney that it looks like Universal is not degrading the story at all. Everything makes sense. So,
right.
Great. Okay. So the next story we're going to talk about is another new theme park that we heard about. Let's bring up the announcement here. So
speaking of dragons,
yeah. Speaking of dragons, the Qiddiya, how do you pronounce it, Scott? Qiddiya. Okay. The Qiddiya investment company has signed a deal with Toei Animation to license the Dragon Ball franchise for a new theme park in the Qiddiya City development in Saudi Arabia. Representatives said our collaboration with Qiddiya marks a key milestone, offering fans a one-of-a-kind opportunity to experience the epic adventures of Dragon Ball firsthand in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. The Toei Animation president said, "The reveal of the world's only Dragon Ball theme park is a testament to the timeless legacy of the Dragon Ball franchise. The details are that the park will feature 7 themed zones inspired by the 7 wish-granting Dragon Balls from the franchise. It'll span over 123 acres with 30 themed rides, including 5 groundbreaking attractions, according to Qiddiya's press release. The project will also offer themed hotels, and the landmark will be a 230-foot Shenron landmark statue, which will be home to the new roller coaster. The renderings that we'll link to the article that shows the renderings. The renderings are quite impressive. I mean, you really are looking at this. I mean, as someone who grew up watching Dragon Ball, that was me. I grew up watching Dragon Ball. Yes. I mean, you're looking at these renderings, and these are scenes, well-known scenes. I mean, the Kame House, having the Capsule Corporation, being able to look through that, and seeing Shenron at the center, and the renderings look phenomenal. Okay, so Scott, as someone who has worked in this area and knows a little bit more about the master project development zone this is a part of, because it's not just a standalone random theme park, it's part of a larger plan. And you've been in the area and worked in it. Tell me a little bit about this, and maybe also why there aren't more stories about this, because this is arguably the same size, kind of as the Berk thing, but we have seen much less about it. And it's also a beloved franchise, that's still going. I mean, Dragon Ball Z still has stuff coming out now. So anyway, Scott, tell us.
Well, let me just take 1 or 2 steps backward just a little bit. For anybody who's listening to this who is involved with the creation of new parks, this is not new news for you. But Saudi Arabia is the hotbed of creation right now for new parks. It's all part of GIA's, the General Entertainment Authority's plan for Mission 2030, which is by 2030 they really want to be the location for not only entertainment but also some other categories that they're trying to continue to build on. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to diversify their country portfolio away from fossil fuels. Not so much because the fossil fuels are dwindling, but there's less and less interest in them worldwide. And there continues to be interest in entertainment. And so it's not only people are looking at these things because, in Qiddiya, they're also doing the giant Six Flags park, largest Six Flags park.
Yep.
They're just all kinds of stuff is going into here. And Qiddiya City is basically Saudi's answer to Yas Island in the United Arab Emirates. One of the things that is so important to this building process is not how much it costs, but rather what the PR value is. They want to continue to expand and kind of welcome with open arms people from other parts of the world who may have some sort of outdated and negative response to the world of Saudi Arabia. Now, I will say, because I dipped my toe in there. I was there for 2 weeks. In Riyadh, working on a project, and I would be lying if I said that there wasn't a little bit of apprehension on my part in going, because of the stories that I've heard and because the things that I know are legal and illegal in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. But superseding everything was the way the people are. The people were so welcoming, and they're so excited to have somebody who has never experienced Saudi before to visit them, to experience their culture, to experience their country. Things are changing so very, very quickly, and with these gigantic theme park and attractions that are being built and being elevated, I guess, in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, it is a great opportunity to encourage people to come and give the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia a new look, a second look, and not just rely on what they think they know about Saudi Arabia. Now, I will say, I had the same experience when I went to Abu Dhabi, and going to Saudi, going to Riyadh is not like going to Orlando. I will say that right up front. It is not like that. It is different. It is a different country. It has different expectations, different culture, different rules. However, they are working very, very hard to to help shift the perception, especially from people in the U.S. I will be honest, to help shift the perception that they are welcoming, that they are a very kind and I'm trying to think of the right word, magnanimous people. I was treated so incredibly well when I was there, and I would not hesitate to go back and work on another project. I would not hesitate to go back and experience this park when it opens. So I think that that is something that we have to really look at, and that is that all of these investments, they have the money. It is a very wealthy country. They have the money, and they're shifting from a government level. They are shifting to creating the largest, the bestest, the most exciting, the only, in the case of the Dragon Ball Park, the only opportunity you can have to experience these things in the real world. So I think that in Qiddiya they're looking. It will be the next Orlando. It will have all of those opportunities. And I know there are people who are looking at it going, well, they are investing so much this couldn't possibly be a good business decision. And in the short term, no, it's probably not. But in the long term, it's a huge investment, and it's an investment that is well planned out and is well planned out by the General Entertainment Authority, GIA. And this is just another example of how can they create things that nobody else can do? Even on a much smaller microcosm, I've used that phrase many times when I'm doing sessions on how to bring new elements or new festivals into parks that are domestic. Find the thing that only you can do. Well, these are things that only they can do, and it appears as though they're doing them quite well. The teeny tiny version of this in Riyadh is called Boulevard City, and Boulevard City is a bunch of pop-ups with a bunch of different iconic intellectual properties. I mean, when I was there, they even had Disney World even had a pop-up castle and geodesic domes that were themed to 4 of the most popular films. That's basically the beta test. They're testing everything or it appears as though they're testing everything in Boulevard City, and then they can expand it and make it bigger, bester, whatever for Qiddiya, because they've got the space, they've got the room to do it there. Yeah. So I am very excited. I'm very excited to see this. Now, I will admit, I was not of the demographic that was watching Dragon Ball growing up. But Philip, as you said, they seem to have hit all the right key elements. And, you are in a demographic where you have some expendable income, and you can take, family members, or you yourself can go and experience this. So it seems like it's the right IP to bring people to the country to experience it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it has a lot of the same elements that How to Train Your Dragon does when we talked about that, in terms of, it has it's hard to say like how Dragon Ball definitely has some, definitely it's a lot of fighting, right? It's a lot of action, but it's a lot of, I don't know if there's like really too many heartfelt moments, but it's definitely a, like, it's a multi-generational thing, and that like it's it's
gamified. It's fun to play,
and the core Dragon Ball series is made for kids. It's it's an anime that is essentially made for kids, and fighting and this and that. So I think it has some of those exciting moments to it, and I think the thing for me is just Dragon Ball is one of those pillar series that has been running for a very long time, and Dragon Ball, the original series, and then Dragon Ball Z, and it's go on and on and on. It's like Pokemon in that regard, where it's a thing that is just there's literally multi generations of people who have watched it in the same family, right? And then you have you have the action and whatnot, and it looks like the diversity of scenes that they are portraying here kind of makes me think that there's going to be more kid-friendly areas, and then more adult themes as well to get So basically, it's very similar to what we talked about with How to Train Your Dragon in terms of.
And what's interesting to me is, there have been comments after this announcement on, I'm not sure how wise it is to focus all this money into one particular IP. Why don't they look at others? But again, looking back at the area, what they're not looking into is the fact that they probably will expand into other IPs and build complete parks for them as well, because they've got the space, they've got the money. They might as well, start with one that is very targeted, do it incredibly well, and then, move on to the next. Which is kind of what we try to do. We try to, focus everything into a 30-minute microcapsule and then move on. And guess what? It's time to move on. So thanks again, you guys. Thanks again so much for watching or listening. We really do appreciate it, and we appreciate hearing from you, whether it's in person or just emailing us or finding us on social media. So since our time is up, on behalf of Philip Hernandez and myself, Scott Swenson, this is Green Tag Theme Park in 30. And once again, we will see you next week.